Hello and welcome to the Heritage Boatworks Podcast. This is episode number 4. And welcome back. This is the world's first podcast dedicated to exploring, promoting, and preserving small boat builders of New England. Thank you for coming by. I'm not going to go into any promotional items right now. I want to hop right back into this interview. This is part 2 of 2. Interview with Graham McKay of Lowell's Boat Shop. And I'm just going to go straight into the interview. Take it away, Graham.
I mean, if these walls could talk, the history up there is unbelievable. The tools are all a lot of very traditional tools,
Yep.
and so maybe I know the history is very long.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just a Cliff Notes version of the history. I know it was 1793 when it all began.
It is. It began earlier, really, but Simeon Lowell, who founded the business in 1793, it's a pinpointed date because he bought the property that the shop stands on in 1793.
Okay.
He moved from a little estuary up closer to the center of town down to here to build ships and small boats. And when he bought it in 1793, it was already an existing shipyard.
Oh, okay.
So I should know the name, but it escapes me now. But there was a shipyard on the site, throughout the 18th century anyway.
Right.
And Simeon bought that and the property across the street. His house was across the street, and he was, building ships and small boats with his sons and later grandsons. And the small boats that he was building at that time were called wherries, but were very similar to the dory in design. And his progeny later refined the wherry design and made it into what we now know as a dory. And in mid-1800s, the fishing industry started to use small boats and dories for fishing. So you'd head out in a bigger schooner, you'd have a bunch of small boats on board, and when you get to the fishing grounds, you put the small boats over the side and they would spread out, cover more bottom that way and catch more fish.
Okay.
So through those decades, basically, the demand for dories skyrocketed.
Right.
And the Lowells were equipped to build them, but they were limited by their space and capacity. So in 1860, they built the present-day shop as a dory factory, basically.
Yeah.
And they streamlined production and to make it over the years anyway, they streamlined production to make it an assembly line style of building.
Yeah.
It was actually one of the first assembly line kind of factories that was established.
Okay.
And so in the attic, they would cut out the individual dory pieces. In the mid-level, they'd assemble them into boats, and in the lower level, they'd paint them and send them out the door ready to go.
Okay.
And the floor layout and the building hasn't changed really since 1860. But they added buildings as time went on to increase their capacity. And I can tell you, even now, I run out of space in there. I was just talking with one of the other boat builders about where we're going to put all these boats and apprentices and things this winter as we start to build.
So they were pushing out dories basically as quick as they could build them.
As quick as they could build them, and if you do the math, in 1911, it was the biggest year, and they averaged 7 boats a day out the door.
Oh my gosh.
And I used to say to people, I used to think, because I can't imagine that you could do that with any fewer than 40 or 50 guys.
Right.
And we've actually recently rediscovered the payroll records for those years, and there were only 12 or 14 guys on payroll.
Probably working 12, 14-hour shifts.
Well, they were working because, in 1911, I think they probably had gotten lights by then, but
Right.
Before that, they were relegated to daylight hours.
Yeah.
But at that point, there were a lot of factories in downtown Amesbury that were making carriages.
Okay.
And some of the records show that some of those factories started to produce dory pieces.
Oh, okay.
So they were buying pre-made dory frames, pre-made dory bottoms.
Like the fiberglass molds are done today.
Yeah. And so they'd buy the pieces and
Yeah.
assemble them in the shop, which is probably how they got to such a height of production.
What when you were looking through the records, what was the price of a dory back then? Do you know?
It was about $20
Oh
back
my
then.
gosh.
Yep. So you could build a dory for $20, or you could sell a dory for $20. They had at that point their biggest consumer was the Gloucester fishing fleet,
Okay.
and they had a warehouse on a wharf down there, and in the ledger books it shows it sold 7 dories from the warehouse,
Right.
basically. So they would make them as quick as they could here, and they'd send them to Gloucester.
Stock them up there.
At that point, on the train,
Yeah.
stock them up, and then just like going to get a loaf of bread, you'd walk in and
Yeah.
buy 8 dories. And they were going all over the world. They
Right.
were going, it was basically the utilitarian cheap boat of its day.
Right.
So, they were going to Africa, they were going to South America, they were going all over. I'm sure they went to, the Portuguese were very big dory fishermen. I'm sure they were going to Europe as well.
Yeah.
And once mechanization happened, though, and they ceased using dories for catching fish, then obviously there was a rather precipitous decline in the demand for dories.
Right.
And this was one of several shops like it along the river here.
Yeah.
And a lot of those shops changed over, just as Lowell's did, to doing pleasure craft. So
Okay.
they built little day sail boats, things like that. And eventually they came up with an outboard skiff, which was a big seller through the middle part of the 20th century, really.
Right. Is that
Just like this one here on the dock next to us. And that's, if you take it down to its constituent parts,
Yep.
I could take the frames out of that boat and the stem out of that boat and put them on a surf dory bottom,
Right.
and it would be a surf dory. So they took the molds and the pieces that they had and then they knew, and they just changed the bottom shape and made a new boat.
That's great.
In the building style here is really difficult to explain. It's very fluid and unusual, I would say. The boats don't have plans; they just have patterns for pieces and some notes, and you do what you can to make them all the same, but very few are the same. Even the patterns for the frames that we use are bigger than they need to be, and as you build the boat, you cut into them and carve the shape out. So it's an unusual building style. It requires a good amount of faith in those that went before you.
Right.
And aside from Robert Elliott back when I was 16, 17, I haven't had anyone here other than one of the Odells to really fully explain to me the ins and outs of the style and the method.
Huh.
I've had
That's
to figure a
interesting.
lot of it out,
Right.
but it's very simple. It's very simple once you give yourself over to the fact that you don't really know exactly how it's going to look at the end, but it's going to look just fine. And it's going to work just fine.
Because it's all done from basically templates.
Yeah, you start from the ground up, and you've got a couple of numbers for this and a few numbers for that,
Right.
and the end construction, the finish work, I guess, is all very much uniform. in
Now, was
terms
that
of-
tough for you coming from a background where you were building boats by measurements and plans? And,
I don't think so, because I really didn't come from a big background of that.
okay.
In some respects, I may have been better suited for it because I knew relatively little.
Right. Okay.
So I wasn't stymied by this or that. This should be this way. I more so just gave myself over to it because I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
and
right.
and it worked out just fine. it hasn't really failed me yet.
Okay, so they're pushing out dories.
Pushing out dories. They start making age-free skiffs, and that it really was a good business even up through the 70s.
Okay.
Even in the late 70s, they were still building 70 or 80 boats a year.
Hello, folks. I apologize, but I had to cut the recording a little bit right here. The wind got really nasty for about 30 seconds, so I don't want to rupture anybody's eardrums. But we'll come right back. We only missed about 30 seconds.
By the mid to late 80s, it became apparent. I mean, the shop was falling apart for lack of maintenance.
From what I'm reading, the early 80s were like a wooden boat recession.
Yes.
Everywhere, around the whole country.
Yep. Yep. Everyone was doing fiberglass. They figured fiberglass out, and it was becoming cheap.
Cheap and easy to work with.
Yep.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think what's happened, I think I've even experienced it a little bit, is that I think the 80s were big for modern, new, bigger, better kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
And you still had a lot of people in the 80s that had grown up with wooden boats.
Right.
There's still lots of wooden boats around. And I think in the 90s, you had the younger generation, far fewer of whom had actually grown up in wooden boats.
Right.
And so there wasn't that nostalgia, there wasn't that... I remember going to camp with my dad, rowing the wooden skiff around, and I think that hurt the industry as a whole. I would say that Wooden Boat Magazine has done a heck of a lot for keeping interests in wooden boats alive, and for the rejuvenation of the industry.
It seems like there's a bit of a revival going on over the past 5-6 years.
Yep, but it's a little bit different in that now I would say the wooden boat is the thing that you get when you've got the money to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas I would say in the 80s, the wooden boat was the thing that you got when you didn't have the money to get a fiberglass boat.
Fiberglass, right. Because now they're all handmade and everything else. So.
Yeah, it's all handmade, and I think now too there's, with all this everything being mass-produced, I think there's a desire for specialty, handmade, buy local kind of stuff.
Right.
And this is, definitely it. A lot of the wood I use, I get from right around here. I find trees and bring them to the mill.
That's great.
So even the loggerhead in this whaleboat there was the trunk of a tree that grew in Simeon's backyard.
Oh, nice. Nice.
So it's very local. It's very custom. I mean, you can, especially with this fluid building method, you can customize a boat any which way. And I have a binder full of notes from customizations of boats.
Right.
So,
all right. Yeah. Why don't we jump into what we're sitting into? Sitting in the whaleboat. I was lucky enough to come by this weekend and see the launch. Absolutely beautiful boat. The apprentices looked like it was built by 8 apprentices. Is that right?
Yep, 8 high schoolers.
And they looked like they were enamored by the boat. And I actually, as I was driving down this road, I could see them rowing down the river. And they had shirts off, and they looked like they were having a blast out there. So, yeah, tell us a little history on this.
This is an unusual thing for us. It's not a flat bottom dory or skiff.
Right.
It's a historic replica of a whaleboat, which is 28.5 feet long and 6.5 feet wide. It's essentially a rugged canoe,
right.
More or less. And they were used throughout the 19th and even into the early 20th century.
Now, is this a Beetle design?
Yes.
Because I saw that on the web, the Beetle stamping on the website.
Yep. So Beetle he had a shop down in New Bedford. He built the lion's share of the boats for the industry. There were a couple of other builders, Leonard being one of them, who built boats, but far fewer.
Right.
And they're remarkable boats in that they are incredibly refined for the work that they did.
Okay.
So as you look around the boat, there are all sorts of little doodads that are all specific to whaling.
Okay.
And it's very lightly built, but very strong and flexible. So just like the Viking ships that could flex, these two wanted to be able to flex because they were often whacked by whales and things while they were in use. And so given that, it makes a great boat for teaching because it's complicated to build.
Yeah.
And so you can teach a lot of things and techniques to apprentices. And if they looked psyched to be in it, it's because we started this project a year ago, and they've been working for a year to build this and finish this. And
That's
if you
great.
know any high schoolers, they don't have a too terribly long of an attention span.
It's more of a half an hour.
Right, and if they can't see tangible results, quickly, then they tend to lose interest. So the fact that they stuck with it for the year and saw it through to completion is great, and I think they were just finally psyched to be out rowing around in it.
Yeah.
When you start building a boat, there's a lot of prep and a lot of build-up, which takes a long time, and you don't see a lot develop. And that was really the first couple months of this project was cutting out molds and having to cut the rabbet into the keel and the stems, all of which are tedious processes and take a long time. So after a month and a half or 2 months of coming in after school, still all you had was a keel and a rabbet, and it progressed very slowly at the beginning. Also trying to teach them some skills along the way too was kind of tough.
Right.
So that slowed things up. But toward the end, it was flying together and finally getting in the water. But this was the inaugural project for the apprentice program that we came up with for this. And it's something, because I haven't forgotten how I got started here and started in building boats in high school, and I had a natural interest and a natural predisposition for this. So I was lucky enough to have it fostered by a few people and to have the outlet of the shop to I guess build that within me.
Right.
And there are a number of programs actually that are popping up to do that with kids, which is great because it's going to just further these skills, but further the interest in wooden boats.
Right, absolutely.
And it's going to sustain it going forward. But having the program for the kids, I think, is the most important part of our mission here, and trying to keep kids interested and get them interested at an early age. But also, I don't know if any of the apprentices that help build this are going to end up being boat builders. I doubt it. Not that they couldn't, but they'll probably just end up doing other things.
Right.
But I don't doubt that they'll have boats along the way and that they'll know how to work on them. But
Are there other lessons there that are taught too?
exactly, just again seeing the project from start to finish. And having patience and really with the launch ceremony that you saw, having pride in the workmanship that one's done, and being proud to bring people over and show it.
And having quite a showing too. There was quite a few people there.
Yeah, and it's just great. I was running around doing all sorts of things, but every time I looked over, the apprentices were hanging around the boat. And there were dozens of people at any one time around the boat asking them questions about this or that. And, I think that's the reward, for this. And a lot of them started far more shy than they ended up, which is good. Throughout the process too, and it's the case with the shop, is to also have the apprentices engage the public.
Right.
And
that's great.
start to learn again at an early age how to talk to people and how to how to present not only yourself but what you're doing.
Right.
So
your craft.
I strongly encourage that.
So yeah, two quick things. Well, I want to talk about
Yep.
a little bit more on the construction of this, and I also do want to explore that apprenticeship program. I know that's something new that LBS is kicking off.
Yep.
A little more specifics on the construction.
Yes.
Looks lap strake.
It's some of that. Yep. So that's, again, it's comprised of many different things. Again, they're all specific to whaling. So
Right.
the garboard, which is the bottommost plank,
Yep.
and the next plank are lapped.
Okay.
So there's one lap down low in the boat, and from there it's smooth planked.
Okay.
Carvel, it would be called, up above the waterline. And it's actually batten seam, which means where those planks join together, there's a wooden strip behind it.
Okay.
This can go on for a long time. But so there's the first plank is lapped because when a whale did hit the boat with its tail or something and flip it over,
Yep.
the lap there gave you something to hold on to with your fingers.
Okay.
So you had a little handhold.
See, that's something that very few people know, I bet.
Yep. And then it was smooth planked from there up because it made the boat quieter.
Okay.
Rather than having laps.
Right,
So
right.
As you were approaching the whale in the water, they'd get spooked from the sound
Right.
of the boat coming at them, and they'd swim away. So the smooth planking made them quieter, but Charles Beadle, when he was building these, he was also repairing a lot of them. He saw a lot of them come back with split planks that had battens behind them to repair them. So he
Okay.
decided that he'd just start building them with batten seams to begin with.
Interesting.
So
okay.
it makes the boat stronger, for one, but it also, these spent most of their life hanging from the side of the ship in davits,
Right.
often in the tropical sun.
Yeah.
So the batten seam would actually keep the boat tighter. So when you did see whales and you launched the boats, they didn't immediately leak and sink.
Right. Right.
So it proved to have two uses. And then once you get above the water line, the boats got a couple of lap planks, which are they're quicker to install, but they're also stronger.
Okay.
So the lap is a stronger thing.
That's great.
It also requires half as many fasteners,
Yeah.
which
Right.
at the time they were building those were probably pretty expensive.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
So it's a composite planking construction, which makes it interesting.
Yeah.
The
Makes it a
planking is
challenge.
only half-inch cedar,
Okay.
which is really thin for a 30-foot boat.
Yep.
And there are a lot of frames in it.
I
And
saw
the
that. A
frames
lot of frames.
are usually what you do when you go to build a boat like this is you set up molds and then you bend what are called rib bands around the molds. So you've got a bunch of strips of wood that define the shape of the boat, and then you bend your frames into those molds so your frames are all in while you're planking. Here, you plank the molds and then you put the frames in after the fact, which proved to be just a painstaking procedure
right.
because you had to notch
Right.
them over all
Right.
of the battens, and you had to pre-bend them on a mold, so you had all these pre-bent frames that you were then trying to fit into the boat, and that process took an exceedingly long time. Once we get the hang of it, it was a lot faster, but
Right.
it was definitely troublesome at the beginning.
Yep.
So lots of frames, and there's a ceiling, so there's an inner layer of planking,
Yep.
which again makes the boat easier to walk around in, for
Yep.
one. It keeps any lines from snagging, so when you've got a harpooned whale running out at 8 knots, the
Right.
line is whizzing out of the boat, and
That's
if
what
it caught
happened.
on anything, you'd immediately turn
That's what happened to Ahab.
turtle. Exactly. You don't want the old Ahab syndrome.
Yeah.
So there's a full ceiling inside. It also it adds some strength to the boat because it is lightly built,
Yeah.
and it serves to keep the sun from beating on the outer planks and drying them out.
And it probably keeps it a little drier in here too, because they probably got water in here all the time.
Yep.
That's great.
And there are 5 rowing stations and 5 seats, so each seat has a rowing station. But
Right.
in this boat, you sit on the opposite side of the boat from your oar lock,
Okay.
and the oars range from 14 to 16 feet, which are super long.
Yeah.
There's one in the boat right now next to us, and it's the steering oar, and that's 22 feet long.
Okay.
So the incredibly long oars just gave you more leverage and allowed you to propel the boat quickly.
Yep.
And just playing with it the other day, I mean, we're unpracticed and we're not nearly as strong as those whalers were, and it took nothing to get the boat moving.
Yeah, it was gliding along
And,
seamlessly.
And keep it moving. So they would have to chase the whale, but often after they harpoon the whale, it would drag them well away from the ship.
Right.
And before it eventually tired and they could kill it.
Right.
Once they had killed it, they'd then have to often tow the whale back.
Right. Right.
So you might be in 2 days.
Yeah.
Once you set out and chase.
Yeah.
So they carried a lot of gear in the boat to do the whaling with, and always some water and stuff to keep them, some food to keep them alive.
Survival stuff. How about the sail rig? I saw you were building that inside.
Yep, we're not quite done with the boat. We wanted to get it launched this year and start using it, and we have actually been using it for programming, but the sail rig is yet to be made. We have some nice 24-foot chunks of West Coast fir.
Yep.
One for the mast, and the boom are both about 22-ish feet, which makes for a very sizable rig for this.
Yep. What's the sail area, do you know? I'm sure.
700 feet.
Wow.
Maybe more.
Wow,
maybe a little
that's
bit
a
more.
big sail.
It's a lot of sail area for this little boat, this little light boat.
Right.
But again, they're long and they can move pretty good. And reading the writings of an old whaling captain, the whales got smarter and smarter as they had been chased around the oceans for decades.
Yep.
And so the whales were accustomed, or they knew the sounds of the boats even rowing after them.
Right.
And they'd get gallied, which meant they'd get scared and swim off. So they took to using paddles. So they'd row close to the whale.
Okay.
And when they got close to it, they'd take out paddles, which they learned from South Pacific Islanders.
Oh, interesting.
And they'd paddle up to the whale. The whales even got scared of that. And toward the end of whaling, the last 40, 50 years of whaling, if the wind permitted, they would always sail onto the whale because it was the quietest way. So the rig is specially designed so that it can drop down into the boat quickly. It's on a hinge.
Oh, okay.
So as soon as you've got momentum and you're coming up to the whale, the guy in the bow can turn around and grab the harpoon and stand by to harpoon the whale. The other guys can lift the bottom of the mast out of its step.
Yeah.
And it's on a hinge, and it'll come right back down. It'll all wrap up nice and neat and fall into this notch here.
Oh, I see.
The back of the boat.
Yep.
And there's a little line you can tie around it, lash it in, and that's all set.
Yep.
Because once you harpoon the whale, you want it to back away as quickly as possible.
Right.
Because it would start to thrash. And so the oars would be ready to run out. And there's even 2 braille lines on the rudder. So you could quickly pull the tiller out of the rudder, pull the 2 braille lines, and the rudder comes smack up against the side of the boat out of the way.
Okay.
And the steering oar is rigged, and all the oars are quickly rigged, and out they go, and you back away from the whale as quickly as possible.
Okay.
This whole process would take place literally in seconds.
Right.
It was a dance that they all had down. But again, this boat is completely and specially designed to do all that.
Yeah, and I'll have pictures of all these things he's explaining on the website.
Yeah.
Okay, let's. I'm amazed by this boat that we're sitting in. It's really quite a gem.
Yeah, the more I've read about the industry and the more, I guess, involvement I've had in the construction, the more in awe that I've become as well.
Right. Yeah, there's a whole new. If you're sitting in it, as a person sitting in it, I'm in awe. It must be a whole new level for you since you've actually put it together.
Just the development. I mean, if you look up forward there are these 2 thumb cleats that stick up from the rail.
Yep.
And I saw them in the plan, and for the longest time didn't know what they were for. And we had a little round table thing at Mystic Seaport.
Okay.
And from that, I learned that the whale line runs out between the chocks there on either side of the stem. So in the very bow of the boat, there are these two large pieces of wood with a groove in between, and the line to the whale would run out between those.
Yeah.
But often, the whale would be going along towing you 6, 7, 8 knots.
Right.
And if it were choppy at all, in the line, because the line ran the full length of the boat back to the loggerhead, so it ran between all the guys in the boat.
Right.
If the line popped out of those chocks and the boat sheared off, you'd clear out half the guys in the boat. They'd be ripped over the side.
Right, so just to catch the line if it bounces out.
So the thumb cleats are there to stop the line if it pops out of the chocks up forward.
Boy, Beetle thought of everything, huh?
Yeah, well,
over time.
I'm sure a number of guys get cleared off before that happened. But it's just the years and years of refinement to these designs, which is it's really interesting.
All right. Well, in the interest of, I could sit here and talk to you all day. But,
I can talk about it all day.
Why don't we talk about the apprenticeship a little bit? That's starting up.
Yep. So we fundraised and fully funded this project, which was all told $100,000, which is a lot of money to build a 30-foot wooden boat. But the time and the involvement with the apprentices, took a lot of man hours to do it, and the pieces themselves were actually rather expensive. I think the set of oars was probably $4,000.
Wow.
The sail itself was probably $3,500. The mast stock was $1,200, $1,500. The cedar, all in was maybe $7,000 or $8,000. So a lot of things that add up before you get to man hours. But the educational component of this project was huge. So it funded the apprentice program, but it also we had more than 200 students a month coming in throughout the project that we were doing special programming with. So we are in the process of fundraising to keep the apprentice program going, and this year I've been interviewing apprentices this week for this year's program, and we've done a whale boat, and this whale boat is destined for Mystic Seaport, where it'll be an exhibit display, and will actually get used as well.
Yep.
But Mystic doesn't need any more whale boats, and we need here some dories. So we need more dories for our on the water programming.
Okay.
So we're going to have the apprentices this year build some traditional
dories,
fishermen's bank dories. And
now these are all high school kids?
Yep. Last year's apprentices, those that would like to return, and I believe those that aren't in college are all going to return. I'm going to have them also build a dory, but I'm going to have them do it without or with as little involvement from us as possible.
Oh, nice.
So,
nice.
I was talking about it with the other boat builder, Jeff, today, and we're going to stick them down in a classroom in the basement, which is fully equipped with tools, but far away from us, and let them have at it.
It's kind of a final exam almost.
Yep. And I want to see what they can do with the knowledge that they have, which I think will be a lot.
Right.
And it's that opportunity to have to figure it out on your own, or at least have faith in the knowledge that you do have, and trust it. That is one of the most valuable things for them. And so giving them an opportunity, here's a pile of wood, here's a plan, go build this boat,
right,
is an unusual one.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think as valuable, if not more valuable, than the time spent, building this whaleboat directly with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Chance to show off their chops a little.
Yep,
that's great. Okay, well, I guess we could tail off there. I still have 100 questions about this boat, but
you might find yourself needing some content in a couple months.
Absolutely,
you can always come back.
I may be coming back. How about if anybody needs to get in touch with you, or is interested in the apprentice program, or interested in the boat?
LowellsBoatShop.com.
LowellsBoatShop.com.
It's the best way. There's an email address there. You can join our mailing list. You can also find us on Facebook. We're all very modern.
And you have a membership as well, right?
Yep. So we have about 300 members now, and membership supports our museum, which we also have,
Right.
and supports daily operation of the shop, and give our members the opportunity to row boats. So on
nice.
Sundays from May to October, we have the waterfront open for rowing.
Excellent.
So if anybody wants to sign up and go row dories on Sunday, they can do that.
Now, do you, if you're not a member, can they come out and row boats and pay a fee or something like that? No, just members only.
Yep, and that is largely a function of insurance.
Yeah, I bet.
But we do love it when our members come row because that gets them more involved. And we have a very active volunteer corps as well that does a lot of stuff around the shop. They're here today making sawdust.
Yeah.
And we also have a number of member events every year. So
Okay.
a couple of rowing races and cookouts and things. So all that information can be found also on the website.
Excellent. Excellent. Well,
And
Graham,
also just by coming by.
yeah, absolutely. It's very easy to find.
Very easy to
Big, giant red building.
Yes. Conveniently located off of 95 and 495.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you, Graham, very
problem.
much for your time. It's been a fantastic first interview.
Again, thanks for having me.
I will let you know when it's published.
Cool.
Thanks, Graham.
Well, that wraps up interview number 1 for the Heritage Boatworks Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to say thank you to Graham McKay and to Lowell's Boat Shop. I had a really great time, and I'm really going to enjoy doing this more in the future. So thanks again, and I look forward to reaching out to you again next month. Bye-bye.